Hi everyone. Welcome to our online engagement event for the Neighbourhood Bikeways Project. Tonight we will be focusing on the Dudley Street corridor. My name is Carly Grassing and I'm the project manager with the City of Saskatoon, responsible for the Neighbourhood Bikeways Project. I'm joined by Danae Logan, the Active Transportation Program Manager with the City. We are also joined by team members from Urban Systems, who are the consultants on this project and will be leading tonight's meeting. We have Brent McMurtry, a transportation engineer, Danny Gray, who will be helping us manage the Q&A forum, and Brian Patterson, the project manager for Urban Systems. Please note that the meeting will be recorded and posted to the city's Engage page for the Neighbourhood Bikeways Project. This will allow residents who were unable to attend tonight's meeting to watch the video and let us know if they have any comments or concerns. This is our first online meeting for the Neighbourhood Bikeways Project, so we appreciate your patience as we go through the materials. I apologize in advance if you are experiencing delays with your video. It depends on everyone's network connection. If you have a significant delay, you may want to turn on your closed captioning to help you follow along. To ensure that the meeting runs smoothly and that we minimize technical difficulties with audio, we ask that you type your comments in the question and answer box and Danny will read them out. If you have joined us on a smartphone, you may experience delays with the video when you're typing your comments. If you're unable to type your comments in the Q&A box, or if you have other technical difficulties during the meeting, we ask that you reach out to us through one of the other engagement methods to submit your comments or ask questions. We have options for email, phone calls, the Engage page, or letters. Details will be provided later in the meeting. I hope that everyone has had a chance to review our video series, which provides an overview about the Neighbourhood Bikeways Project, common design solutions, and what we use on bikeway facilities, and the proposed design for Dudley Street. The main focus of tonight's meeting will be the proposed design for the Dudley Street corridor. We are really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the design. I will now pass it over to Brian so he can begin outlining the design for Dudley Street.
Great, thanks Carly, and hello everyone. Thank you for joining this virtual open house tonight. As Carly mentioned, my name is Brian Patterson. I am a transportation planner who works for Urban Systems and is working with the City of Saskatoon on this Neighbourhood Bikeways project. So welcome again to this virtual open house for the second round of engagement for this Neighbourhood Bikeways project. Due to COVID-19, all City of Saskatoon public engagement is being conducted virtually for the time being. And over the next month, we'll be holding a series of virtual open houses to obtain input through this modified process to obtain input for each corridor. Today's virtual open house focuses on the Dudley Street corridor. Your input is very important and we wanted to make sure there was an opportunity to provide feedback. So with this presentation, I'll provide a brief overview of the project, and further details can be found on a series of videos and other information that are available on the city's website. You can see a screen cap from the city's Engage page with a link on the bottom of the screen there, where you can access a number of videos which will provide a little bit more detail and information than what we'll be providing in this presentation here today. So with this event tonight, we'll provide a highlight and an overview of the study, the process we've gone through, some key features of the design, and then we'll walk you through some of the specific design considerations for Dudley Street, and we'll follow that up with a Q&A session. A few housekeeping notes. Carly mentioned a few in the introductions. So for discussion this evening through the event, if you have questions, as was mentioned, feel free to ask those throughout the presentation using the Q&A tool, and you should see a notification announcement about that now. As Carly mentioned, on some mobile devices, the presentation will pause when typing a question in the Q&A section, so just be aware of that. We have a small group today, but hopefully will be a good lively discussion and happy to answer questions from those participants here. I'll also mention that there will be a feedback survey and that will be available after the event as well to get your input on today's event. And the Engage page also has additional resources, as I mentioned. So the purpose of this study is to look at neighborhood bikeways along a number of corridors throughout the city of Saskatoon. And the purpose of this is really recognizing that the city is committed to promoting active transportation and providing transportation choices that are safe and comfortable for people of all ages and abilities year-round. This project will help identify measures to provide more travel choices and to improve safety, accessibility, and connectivity. Is important to help discuss issues, opportunities, and some of the design treatments and recommended designs that we'll be discussing today. The overall Neighbourhood Bikeways project includes 5 corridors that were identified. You can see the corridors on the image here, and they include 29th Street and 31st Street West from Circle Drive to Idlewild Drive, Dudley Street, which is the subject of tonight's event, from Dawes Avenue to Spadina Crescent, 3rd Avenue North from 25th Street East to 2nd Avenue North, 14th Street East from Saskatchewan Crescent to Cumberland Avenue, and Victoria Avenue from 8th Street to Taylor Street East, which is being designed by city staff. So we are starting with the Dudley Street corridor through this process, and we will be proceeding with engagement on the other corridors based on feedback received tonight from this event over the next month or so. So in terms of the study process, this study is being completed through 5 phases of work. That includes a review of existing conditions, public engagement that was conducted back in the spring in February and March to obtain input on concerns and key considerations. And based on that input, we've developed conceptual designs for each of the neighborhood bikeways, which is now complete. The purpose of this open house is to present the recommended concept for the Dudley Street corridor and to answer any questions you may have. So through the Neighbourhood Bikeways Project, we're looking at what we're calling all ages and abilities cycling facilities, or AAA cycling facilities, as it's often called. AAA cycling active transportation facilities are intended to be safe and comfortable for all people walking and cycling, regardless of their age and ability. And there are 3 types of AAA cycling facilities that are considered for each of the study corridors: protected bike lanes, multi-use pathways, and neighborhood bikeways. I'll explain the features of each of these different facilities on the next slides. Protected bike lanes and multi-use pathways provide a physical separation between motorists and people cycling, which allows for safe and comfortable cycling, even when the traffic volumes and speeds are high. Protected bike lanes are typically used when physical separation is required because traffic speeds and volumes cannot be reduced adequately to provide an all ages and abilities facility. And multi-use pathways are typically built within parks, utility corridors, greenway corridors, or other locations where on-street cycling facilities are suitable or desired. Neighborhood bikeways are all ages and abilities facilities where design treatments are used to ensure low traffic volumes and speeds so that people walking and biking are more comfortable. Depending on the existing traffic speed and volume, traffic calming measures may be required to reduce traffic volumes and speeds. Neighborhood bikeways do not typically impact on-street parking, as is the case with the Dudley Street corridor. So I'll be discussing some of the design treatments for neighborhood bikeways throughout the presentation as we discuss the key considerations and key design features of this corridor. But I'll start with a summary of existing conditions of the Dudley Street corridor. So Dudley Street runs east-west throughout the city between Dawes Avenue and Spadina Crescent, and it provides an important connection between the Meewasin Trail and the multi-use pathway on Dawes Avenue, which connects to 11th Street West, which is a parallel east-west corridor just to the north of Dudley Street. This corridor provides a number of important connections, including to the Gordie Howe Sports Complex, St. John School, and the industrial employment areas. The next slide summarizes some existing conditions along the corridor for pedestrians, transit, and on-street parking. The top map shows that much of the corridor today does not have sidewalks, so there's an important opportunity to improve conditions not only for people cycling, but also for people walking. There are multi-use pathways found on both ends, as I mentioned, on Dawes and Spadina with the Meewasin Trail, So this provides a really great opportunity to connect those two existing multi-use pathways. The middle map shows transit along the corridor and recognizes there's one transit route that runs westbound for a small section of the corridor between Avenue P and Avenue W. And finally, the bottom map shows existing on-street parking utilization along the corridor. Parking is currently allowed on both sides of the street throughout the corridor, and we found that parking utilization is generally low throughout the corridor throughout most times of the day. So the existing conditions along the corridor, it's generally a local street with relatively low traffic volumes and speeds. It has two distinct halves, as you can see on this slide here, that are separated by Avenue P, essentially in the middle of the corridor. The western section of the corridor, shown in section 1, has wide travel lanes, on-street parking on both sides of the street, and is primarily industrial land use, with many blocks lacking curbs and gutters. The eastern section of the corridor, number 2 on the map, has narrower travel lanes, provides on-street parking on both sides of the street, and has wide street trees in boulevards between the curbs and people's homes. Through the first round of engagement, we asked a number of questions from the public, including identifying some opportunities and challenges and what could be improved along the corridor. Some of the themes we heard from the first round of engagement included opportunities for multi-use pathways and sidewalks to improve pedestrian safety, improved road surface conditions, more street trees, more lighting, better snow removal, better signage, and improved conditions to Montgomery via 11th Street West multi-use pathway. And I'm seeing I'm having some connection issues with my screen here. So just see if I can switch my camera. Here we go. Okay. So in terms of the recommended concept, based on what we heard throughout the first round of engagement, we're recommending distinct features for the western and eastern ends of the corridor. On the west side of the corridor, the recommended concept includes a multi-use pathway on the south side of Dudley Street between Dawes Avenue and Avenue P, as shown in segment 1. And on the eastern segment of the corridor, shown on number 2 on the map, we're recommending a neighborhood bikeway between Avenue P and Spadina Crescent. And the next slides will show a little bit more detail about these treatments. So the next slide zooms in a little bit more so you can see the features of the west side of the corridor. Again, this is between Dawes Avenue and Avenue P. And in this segment, as I noted, we have a multi-use pathway for this segment of the corridor to improve safety and comfort for both pedestrians and cyclists. The multi-use pathway is generally 3 meters wide. And with this design, parking would remain on both sides of the street as it is today, and vehicle access would not change with 2 lanes of travel as it is today. On the east segment of the corridor, segment 2, between Avenue P and Spadina Crescent, this is where a neighborhood bikeway is recommended. And in this case, with a neighborhood bikeway, there are no actual changes to the cross section of the roadway. So similar to the western section of the corridor, parking would be maintained on both sides of the corridor, and traffic would remain as it is, with vehicle traffic allowed for both directions. The focus of a neighborhood bikeway is instead providing traffic calming treatments to reduce traffic speeds and volumes to make it more comfortable, with features such as raised crosswalks, curb extensions, and pedestrian activated signals. And again, the focus is improving conditions not only for cyclists, but improving conditions for pedestrians. And the concept also includes some new sidewalks, traffic calming, and new crosswalks throughout the corridor. And this will also help to improve safety for children traveling to St. John's School. So on the following slides, I'll walk you through some key features of the corridor moving from west to east. So we'll start on this slide from Dawes Avenue. And at Dawes Avenue, what we are proposing is a new crosswalk and a cross ride on the south side of the intersection, along with a pedestrian and cyclist activated signal to improve intersection safety and connect to the Dawes Avenue multi-use pathway, as you can see in the enlarged image there. Throughout the west section of the corridor, between Dawes Avenue and Avenue P, generally the concept includes a 3-meter multi-use pathway on the south side of the street, as I mentioned. There's a number of driveways along the corridor, so the multi-use pathway will transition to street grade through the driveway section, but will maintain a curb separation and pavement markings to highlight crossing points for all. As I mentioned, parking is maintained on both sides of the street for the entire corridor. A number of streets have yield signs along this corridor, and the concept involves changing these yield signs on the cross streets to stop signs at many of the north-south locations along the corridor to improve safety. And finally, a new painted crosswalk and cross ride will improve safety for people walking and biking across Avenue X. On the next slide, continuing to move further east, we move from Avenue X to Avenue U, and some very similar features on this segment of the corridor. Parking is maintained on both sides of the street in this section. The 3 meter pathway continues. We also have yield signs on Avenue U changed to stop signs, and a new painted crosswalk and cross ride will be added. As we continue further east from Avenue U to Avenue Q, similar design features. Again, parking is maintained on both sides of the street. 3 meter multi-use pathway continues, and a new painted crosswalk and cross ride will be added. Between Avenue Q and Avenue P, this is where we see the concept transition from the multi-use pathway to the neighborhood bikeway. And in this segment, adjacent to Gordie Howe Park, we see the 3 meter multi-use pathway will transition through the park to simplify the crossing to and from Dudley east of Avenue P. This involves also adding curb extensions with a pedestrian and cyclist activated signal at Avenue P to improve intersection safety, and relocating the east-west crosswalk of Avenue P from north of Dudley Street to connect directly with the multi-use pathway. This segment also includes adding new sidewalks to improve pedestrian safety along Dudley east of Avenue P, pending further feasibility evaluation. It also includes new raised crosswalks to improve safety of children walking or biking to St. John's School and to reduce vehicle and cyclist speeds. And again, as with the remainder of the corridor, parking is maintained on both sides of the street throughout this segment. As we continue further east, we see similar design treatments. Again, parking is maintained on both sides of the street. New sidewalks are added to improve pedestrian safety pending further feasibility evaluation. We would continue to change yield signs for north-south traffic to stop signs, and new curb extensions would be added at Avenue K to improve pedestrian safety and to reduce vehicle speeds. And finally, between Avenue K and Spadina Crescent, we would see similar treatments. Yield signs, again, would be changed to stop signs. New sidewalks would be added pending further feasibility evaluation. On-street parking continues to be maintained on both sides of the street, and new painted crosswalks would be added at Spadina Crescent to improve safety and transition to the Meewasin Trail. So those slides summarize the key design features. We'll move into a Q&A and welcome any questions participants might have in the chat, if we have any. Not seeing any questions. Maybe I'll pause a moment and see if anybody has any questions or comments about the design. And maybe while we're waiting to see if there's questions, we could, the next slide just outlines kind of where we go from here for the process, just in terms of next steps. So if you're reviewing some of the information and just thinking about designs, we'll come back to that and allow you to type in any questions if you should have any. But in terms of next steps, as I mentioned, this is the first open house we're holding virtually as part of this process. And we will be continuing to hold additional public events over the coming month to present recommended designs for the other corridors. Over the course of the fall, we will be refining and finalizing our corridor designs based on input received, and then we'll be aiming to finalize the study and the report throughout the end of the fall of this year. There's a number of ways beyond participating in this session today that you can get involved. You can share your feedback by visiting the saskatoon.ca/engage page, as I mentioned. And again, there's additional information about the project on that page there as well, including the videos I mentioned. You can talk with project team members, share your ideas today. And I think we have a question coming in, so I'll pop back to that. You can share your input on social media, and then there will be a feedback form at the end of the session here today. There's one question: will the crosswalks at Spadina be cross rides as well? And I'm just going to open the design, or we could flip back to that image just to show that segment, so anybody watching can kind of see this piece here. And perhaps I could, it does look like the design is crosswalks. Maybe I could invite some of our technical team members here as well. Brent is helping here as well. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we're not showing cross rides just because we're transitioning from a neighborhood bikeway to this shared use path on the Mawson Trail. So we would be looking at not trying to direct cyclists onto the sidewalk. Also noting that the Spadina Crescent is going to be closed to vehicle traffic in the future, and traffic volumes are expected to be very light. So at this time, yeah, we're not showing cross rides in this location. And then there's another question about the stop signs at Avenue K and Avenue U. And so, which I will go back. So Avenue K, the intent is to switch the stop signs so that Dudley has the right of way, noting that there's lower traffic volumes on Dudley, and that creates a continuous stretch for people who are using the neighborhood bikeway. Avenue U I will go to as well. So I think that Avenue U is currently yield signs. And so I think that the design is proposed to go from yield control on Avenue U to stop control. So hopefully that answers your question. And send it back over to Brian.
Thank you, Brent. Yeah, so hopefully that helps answer questions. Overall, with stop signs along the corridor, one thing we were hoping to do, one of the key features of a neighborhood bikeway, is to prioritize cycling movements along the corridor. So often one of the treatments that's used for neighborhood bikeways, if there are stop signs along the corridor, which might be inconvenient for cyclists, the suggestion is to reorient those stop signs so they're for the cross streets, so cyclists can continue along the corridor unimpeded. But that's where other features like we have in the design, things like raised crosswalks and curb extensions, help to manage that and make sure that even though it creates kind of free flow conditions for people cycling and driving, those other traffic calming measures help to ensure traffic volumes and speeds still stay low with that treatment. Yeah, so hopefully that helps. And as I mentioned, a number of kind of traffic calming treatments throughout this east segment of the corridor, just really intended to kind of create a more comfortable space for people cycling and walking. It's already relatively low volume, but it's a great opportunity to improve walkability with sidewalks, and especially with St. John's School along the corridor, number of parks in the area. It's a great opportunity, we think, to make it a great street to walk and bike along. Pause again and just see if there's any further questions on any of the features here.
Hello. So we had mentioned the Spadina closure. Wanted to give a bit of an update. The timing of the construction for the closure is dependent on the completion of the Dundonald Avenue realignment. This is now slated for completion by the end of August. So we are expecting the Spadina closure work to begin in September.
You're muted, Danae.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. My my mic is not wanting to unmute for me. As I was saying when you couldn't hear me, I'm Danae Belogan, the Active Transportation Program Manager, and I can give a brief update on sidewalk infill. As Brian mentioned, there are some missing sidewalks along this stretch of Dudley, and Transportation does prioritize missing sidewalk locations using a combination of land use and street context to determine which sidewalk locations will have the most impact on the safety and walkability of the pedestrian network. Installing sidewalks in existing neighborhoods can be challenging due to the presence of physical constraints such as trees and utilities, fences, etc. These constraints require careful consideration to ensure that the project is feasible prior to construction. This is why the sidewalk program is kind of currently focusing on prioritization, planning, and assessing. And certainly as a part of this corridor study, we will do the same for the sidewalks along Dudley to kind of assess their feasibility in order to get a sense of whether or not construction of those sidewalks can proceed, given any constraints that may be in place.
I do see a follow-up question. When will you know if additional sidewalks will be approved?
Yeah, so I can answer that one. I assume, making an assumption here that the additional sidewalks you're talking about are the sidewalks along Dudley. That would be a part when we move into the next phase of looking at this project and this corridor as a whole, getting into detailed design. We would start to look at a bit more of a detailed review of the constraints that exist along those couple of blocks that are missing sidewalks. And if I'm making a wrong assumption, please correct me in the chat box.
We have a new question regarding how much traffic disruption is expected during this construction.
I can jump in on this. I think that with the construction, or with the design that we're showing, primarily having construction limited to outside of the roadway, that likely traffic wouldn't be disrupted significantly as construction occurs. There may be single lane closures or spaces where parking is used for staging and some other construction works, but likely you wouldn't see significant traffic disruption for construction of the facilities shown. And keep the questions coming if you guys have any more. We're happy to answer them.
So related to that traffic disruption question, we do have some updates on some road projects that are planned in the next few years. So some portions of Dudley Street are planned for improvements in 2021 and 2022. And I'm just going to insert the asset preservation map in the question and answer box. So you can keep an eye on that map to see which sections of Dudley are planned. But if we can tie in the work for the bikeways with that work, that would create less traffic disruption for your neighborhood. So that's ideally the goal. So maybe I'll provide an update. My name, I didn't introduce myself earlier, is Natalie Bode. I'm the Senior Transportation Engineer responsible for neighborhood traffic reviews. And we're hoping to hear more from you on the Bikeways study. I'm also assisting with that project as well. So please keep entering your questions and comments in the chat box. And while we wait for that, I just thought I'd give you an update about some of the neighborhood traffic reviews that are happening in your area right now. So we're currently undertaking the neighborhood traffic review for Holiday Park and King George. We had the first meeting last year in October, and the first meeting of the neighborhood traffic review program is really our data collection, kind of information gathering meeting. So we look for feedback from the neighborhood on traffic issues that you're seeing, and we use the information from that meeting to develop a data collection program. And after that, after we analyze the data, we come back at a second meeting to present a draft traffic plan with possible solutions to address those traffic issues. So for Holiday Park King George, because of the pandemic this spring, we weren't able to undertake the data collection as planned. So we're hoping to complete that data collection once Spadina is closed and come back to you for the second meeting, either later this fall or early in the new year. And we also just kicked off the neighborhood traffic review for the Gordie Howe management area, West Industrial and Southwest Industrial area. And the meeting for that is actually scheduled for next Thursday, August 27th. And again, that's our information gathering from the neighborhood on traffic issues in your area. So if you have a free evening next Thursday, we'd love to have you attend our online session. If you aren't available, then we can gather your feedback through email, phone, letter. We've prepared an online survey, and all of that information is on the Engage pages, and I'll post the links to those in the question and answer box as well. So if you are interested in those studies, you can access them from those pages. Let's just check in with the question and answer forum. It looks like there might be some new questions. Nope, those are just our links. So here's the link for the Gordie Howe management area. And here is the link for the Holiday Park and King George area. Okay. So I'm not seeing any information in the question and answer box for the Bikeways Dudley corridor right now. So just to give you another minute while you might be typing in your questions and comments, I'll just give you another update on another project that we're doing that could be of interest to you in the neighborhood. I know we have heard concerns about speeding through the first meeting of Holiday Park King George. And you might be interested to know that Council requested us to undertake a speed limit review this spring, and we're still working on that. The scope of the speed limit review is to review posted speed limits on residential streets, in which we may consider lowering the posted speed limit on those residential streets. We're also considering removing the reduced speed limits near high schools, and we're considering creating reduced speed limits for playground zones and potentially establishing senior zones. So all of those things are being assessed as part of the speed limit review, and we're hoping to do some engagement and present that work to Council in 2021. Okay, I'm not seeing any new questions in the question and answer box right now.
You're still muted, Natalie.
Oh, thanks for that. I was just talking about how we're hoping you can share the information about this study with your neighbors or other parents at your children's schools or wherever you might be in the neighborhood. We're hoping to get as much input on this as we possibly can. So please reach out to us at the Engage page or through email or by phone. We're always happy to hear from you and get your thoughts on this design. Thanks so much to Brian and Brent for presenting and answering our questions today. It's been great working with them, and we look forward to hosting similar online engagement events for the upcoming corridors as well. So if you aren't on our subscriber list, you might want to subscribe on the Engage page, and then you'll receive an email prior to the other engagement events for the other corridors if you are interested in those. So I'll pass it back to Carly.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. The meeting recording will be posted to the Engage page in the next few days if there is anyone that wasn't able to make the meeting tonight that would like to view it. The comment period will be open for 1 month. We have multiple methods for submitting comments, as we have mentioned this evening, email, phone call, the Engage page, and letters. All of the details are on saskatoon.ca/engage page. Please feel free to reach out to us if you think of any additional concerns. We encourage you to share the information with your neighbors so that they also have an opportunity to participate. We would like to get your opinion on how the online meeting went. Please let us know by filling out the online survey, which I will post in the Q&A forum. If you would like to keep up to date on this project via email, you can subscribe at the end of that survey. On behalf of Brian, Brent, Danny, Danae, Natalie, and myself, I would like to thank you all for joining us tonight and for participating in the Neighbourhood Bikeways Project.